During the pre-dawn hours one morning in September of 2023, a 6-person wedding party was denied entry at a restaurant in Newport, Rhode Island, due to the business's policy of not letting people in after 1 a.m. One of the party members, 44-year-old businessman David Onick, pushed an employee and punched a security guard, prompting employees to get the police involved. When a responding officer tried talking to Onick, his wife, 41-year-old Rachel Onick, kept interrupting. While being led away by Sergeant Stephen Carrig, Rachel tripped and fell, triggering an all-out brawl between the police and the wedding party. In one officer's body cam footage, Onick could be heard repeatedly proclaiming his innocence as the police handcuffed him and told him he was being detained. Other footage showed an officer punching Rachel in the face, knocking her unconscious. Police later claimed that Rachel was trying to take the officer's gun when he decided to throw a fist. At one point during the altercation, Sergeant Carrig fell backwards and hit his head on the ground, causing him to temporarily lose his vision and become disoriented. He was treated at a nearby hospital for a broken nose. Several people were charged for their roles in the melee. The Onyx faced the most serious charge, with David being blamed for starting the melee, while Rachel was accused of trying to disarm 2 police officers. David pleaded guilty to reduced charges and was sentenced to a year of probation. According to the most recent available updates, Rachel's case appears to be ongoing. She's charged with 2 counts of felony larceny, 2 counts of simple assault, and 1 count each of resisted arrest, obstruction, and disorderly conduct. Number 24. Simone Bryna Kim. As a Philadelphia-bound Frontier Airlines flight waited to depart from Miami International Airport in March of 2023, a heated argument broke out between 2 passengers. It's unclear what the disagreement was about, but a woman could be heard saying, "You're not even from Philly," as she repeatedly threatened to beat up a male passenger. A civilian bystander and a crew member tried unsuccessfully to intervene, and the woman was ordered off the plane. Later identified as 24-year-old Simone Bryna Kim of Killeen, Texas, she refused to exit the aircraft, prompting the crew to get the police involved. Kim became combative as 4 officers struggled to remove her from the plane. In a disturbing video captured by an onlooker, Kim could be seen flailing as the officers carried her to a squad car and put her inside. She was also accused of pushing, pulling, kicking, scratching and biting the cops, resulting in felony charges of battery on a police officer and resisting an officer with violence, along with misdemeanor counts of trespassing and assault on an officer. The outcome of the case is unclear. Number 23. Andre Beisinger. In September of 2018, police in Oshkosh, Wisconsin, attempted to arrest 47-year-old Andre Beisinger outside a regional airport on an outstanding domestic violence charge. As the first officer arrived on scene, Beisinger drove a small plane straight toward his patrol vehicle. The cop got back into his car and reversed as quickly as possible to avoid being struck by the aircraft. He made another attempt at stopping the plane but got out of the way as it accelerated down the runway. Ignoring orders from air traffic control, Beisinger took off. Later that night, he crashed the plane in Waupaca County and was hospitalized with severe injuries. He was charged with 2 counts of second-degree recklessly endangering safety, in addition to the domestic violence charges he was already facing. In March of 2019, Beisinger was declared incompetent to stand trial and ordered to undergo psychiatric treatment, putting his criminal cases on hold indefinitely. Number 22. Noah Spells. Early one morning in December 2023, a pair of police officers on Australia's Gold Coast responded to a call about 2 suspicious-looking men in a damaged Lexus. As the officers ordered the suspects to exit the car, one of them ran away. One of the cops chased after him while the other suspect, 40-year-old Noah Spells, tackled a female officer to the ground twice and ran away despite being tased. Police caught up with Spells and the other suspect, while the injured officer received medical treatment for abrasions and a head injury. During a search of the Lexus, officers found a gun, ammunition, and items that had been used in recent property crimes. In March of 2024, Spells was sentenced to 2 years in prison with the eligibility of parole after 1 year. Number 21. Kevin Costello. In February of 2021, 911 dispatchers in Montgomery County, Maryland, received an influx of calls about a man who was driving erratically and threatening strangers in Laytonsville. Later identified as 52-year-old Kevin Koslow, the suspect had already caused 2 car accidents by the time Sergeant Frank Pruitt arrived at the scene. Pruitt saw Koslow approaching people with a large wooden tree branch in his hands and sprang into action. The wood-wielding suspect refused to cooperate with Pruitt's orders, instead lifting the branch above his head and repeatedly slamming it down on the sergeant. Pruitt's taser malfunctioned, so he grabbed his gun and fired a dozen shots in self-defense, striking Koslow at least 10 times. Life-saving efforts were immediately undertaken, but the suspect died from his injuries. Koslow's loved ones knew him as a law-abiding family man and husband with a good job and no history of violence, but they had noticed a change in his behavior in the days leading up to the incident. An autopsy revealed that Koslow had no drugs or alcohol in his system, yet he had recently started talking nonsensically, speaking to his loved ones about looming end times and believing that he was Jesus Christ. The night before his death, Koslow threw himself onto the floor and yelled about how he was going to be crucified. His family believed that he suffered a sudden psychotic break and was in dire need of mental help at the time of his death. Pruitt was cleared of any wrongdoing after prosecutors determined that he used his gun as a last resort and tried handling the situation by other means before shooting Koslow. Number 20. Gerardo Contreras. A San Francisco police officer was patrolling the city's Chinatown district alone due to a staffing shortage in May of 2021 when she responded to reports of a man damaging scooters and making racist threats towards civilians. Later identified as 33-year-old Gerardo Contreras, the suspect initially complied with the officer's orders to turn around and put his hands on his head. Then out of nowhere, he viciously attacked the cop. Body cam footage showed Contreras taking the officer to the ground and straddling her as bystanders rushed over to stop the assault. In the video, the Good Samaritans could be seen pulling Contreras off of the officer as he continued being combative. Witness Michael Waldorf was among those who sprang into action. He later told ABC 7 News that Contreras had a death grip on the officer. Thanks to the onlooker's assistance, the officer regained control of the situation and backup soon arrived. She received treatment for minor injuries, and investigators concluded that the attack was driven by anti-Asian prejudice. Contreras was charged with assault, resisting a police officer, hate crime, and false imprisonment. Records show that he is not currently in custody, leaving the outcome of the case unclear. Number 19. Aline Borden. In February of 2024, Philadelphia police arrested 29-year-old Aline Borden, who was found sleeping inside a car that had been stolen from a delivery driver earlier that day. While being booked into jail, he complained that he was in pain. Borden was taken to a hospital in the city's Kensington neighborhood, where he received treatment and was soon discharged. While being escorted out of the hospital with his hands cuffed behind his back, he fled on foot and outran officers who chased after him. A half hour later, he was seen leaving a residence and getting into a car with his handcuffs still on. Borden managed to stay one step ahead of the authorities for more than a day before U.S. Marshals came knocking at a house where he was hiding out. He fled the residence on foot, jumped down a 30-foot embankment onto some train tracks and continued running. Unwilling to risk their own safety during the pursuit, the Marshals declined to run after Borden, and the manhunt continued. In the meantime, an agency spokesperson warned the public about Borden's possible mental health issues and suspected access to guns. He was also a known drug user with an extensive criminal history. After more than 3 days on the run, Borden was found hiding in the attic of a home in Cambria County. He was taken to the Cambria County prison while awaiting transfer back to Philadelphia, and his case appears to be ongoing. Number 18. Parter Huff. 28-year-old Parter Huff was already out on bail for assaulting an officer in Forest Park, Illinois, when he attacked 2 Chicago police officers in October of 2016, leaving one of them severely injured. The incident began when Huff crashed his car into a liquor store while high on PCP. Police dashcam footage showed the suspect resisting as responding officers attempted to handcuff him. In the video, Huff could be seen throwing punches and pulling Officer Veronica Murillo down by her hair, causing her head to hit the ground with such force that it bounced off the pavement. Huff was also accused of slamming the officer's head against the ground repeatedly until she fell unconscious. It took multiple officers to subdue him, even after being tased twice. He was charged with attempted murder of a police officer and multiple counts of aggravated battery to a police officer. Murillo said that she thought she was going to die during the attack, but that she didn't use her gun because she feared the public scrutiny that would have likely ensued. She suffered a neck injury, cuts and abrasions, and bone chips to the shoulder and wrist and is now permanently disabled. Another officer suffered a concussion, a broken thumb, a torn muscle, and other injuries. Huff was convicted of 2 aggravated battery charges and sentenced to 20 years with credit for time served. Records show that he could be paroled as early as 2025. Number 17. Zephyr Edwards. 3 police officers ended up in the hospital in June of 2020 following a violent confrontation with a trio of suspects. The incident began when the cops stopped a man on an electric scooter. They were approached by 22-year-old Zephyr Edwards and the 2 other suspects who knew the scooter rider. The confrontation between Edwards and the police became physical, and an 18-year-old woman joined in, repeatedly kicking the officers while refusing their orders to back away. During the scuffle, a female officer was kicked in the face and a male officer was kicked in the groin. The police eventually managed to subdue the suspects, who were all arrested for their accused roles in the attack. Edwards was detained without bail on suspicion of assaulting police, hindering police, and offensive language. The female suspect was charged with assaulting police and hindering police, and a 30-year-old male was charged with offensive language and resisting arrest. They were both granted bail and released, and the scooter rider was ticketed for riding on a footpath. Updates on the case have not been forthcoming, leaving the outcome unclear. Number 16. Frederick Hall. August of 2018, footage of police beating a man in Raleigh, North Carolina, went viral, sparking widespread outrage and allegations of excessive force. Later identified as 44-year-old Frederick Hall, the man could be seen swinging at multiple officers in body cam footage of the encounter. As the police tried fending off Hall with batons, one of the cops tackled him to the ground. He was restrained by 7 officers who could be seen striking him in the back with a baton, kicking him and stomping on his hand. Bonnie Kidder was stopped at a red light when she captured footage of the takedown. She later told news station WRAL that Hall was being very confrontational toward the officers. Police eventually released body and dashcam footage of the encounter, but it failed to answer lingering questions about what had led up to the incident. Hall's brother Douglas told the News and Observer that Frederick has a history of mental illness dating back to 2012 and that he had previously been hospitalized several times. Frederick had also been beaten by the police 2 years earlier after his SUV broke down on an interstate. During the previous incident, which occurred in March of 2016, he was hit by a tow truck after exiting his vehicle. Within minutes, he was surrounded by 4 Raleigh officers and 2 state troopers who allegedly yanked him out of his SUV, handcuffed him, pepper sprayed him, and beat him unconscious. In 2020, Hall sued the police for the first beating and was awarded a $60,000 settlement. The officers involved in the second beating were cleared of any wrongdoing, with local officials saying that the police did what was necessary to subdue Hall and that the incident could have been avoided if he had obeyed law enforcement's orders. Number 15. Vyacheslav Oleinik. Ukrainian former pro wrestler Vyacheslav Oleinik won a gold medal for his country during the 1996 Olympics in Atlanta, Georgia. And he proved that he was still on top of his fighting game 20 years later when he went up against 7 police officers in Kiev. Oleinik was out celebrating his 50th birthday in April of 2016 when he was pulled over on suspicion of drunk driving. The bizarre exchange that followed showed a police officer pepper spraying Oleinik, which failed to subdue him and only seemed to make him angrier. After realizing that the pepper spray wasn't enough to tame the ex-wrestler, the officers pulled out their batons. Oleinik continued to fight the police even after he started bleeding profusely from head wounds inflicted by the batons. He finally began to calm down when his friends reminded him that his young son was watching the scene unfold from inside his vehicle and that the boy was scared and crying. From that point forward, he stopped resisting and surrendered, slipping in one last dig as he politely told a female officer to F herself. Oleinik admitted to reporters that he was partially guilty for ignoring the officer's orders, but he insisted that he wasn't a criminal, noted that he wouldn't have been released later that day if he had done anything terribly wrong. He went on to say that he was sure the authorities would punish him at a later time because that's what they always do, seemingly unaware that his behavior played a role in his arrest. Number 14. Nancy Kemp. In May of 2022, Oklahoma Highway Patrol Trooper Preston Cox pulled over 68-year-old Nancy Kemp for failing to dim her high beams. He noticed that the driver showed signs of intoxication, including slurred speech and watery, bloodshot eyes. In dashcam footage captured inside the trooper's car, Kemp could be heard saying that she had just left a bar in Oklahoma City, sitting in the front passenger seat. She admitted to drinking a shot of tequila but insisted that she had also drunk plenty of water. Kemp nearly begged Cox not to conduct a field sobriety test, but the trooper made it clear that he had every intention of doing so. In an apparent last-ditch effort to avoid the exercise, Kemp made a grab for her driver's license and tried to exit the vehicle. Cox later wrote in an arrest report that he grabbed the woman's wrist and neck in an attempt to stop her from fleeing, but that Kemp continued to resist. During the 5-minute scuffle that ensued, Kemp could be heard telling Cox to stop as they fell out of the car and continued wrestling on the ground. Cox admitted to kneeing and elbowing Kemp in the face several times during his attempts to handcuff her. He eventually succeeded, and Kemp was booked into the Logan County Jail on suspicion of driving under the influence, resisting arrest, and obstructing an officer. Kemp eventually sued the police in state and federal court for excessive force, claiming that the incident left her with multiple broken bones, including a broken nose and ribs and bruises covering her body from head to toe. The Oklahoma State Highway Patrol stood behind Cox, stating that he acted within his duty to enforce the compliance of a suspected drunk driver who was putting herself and the public at risk. The outcome of Kemp's criminal case is unclear, and the civil case appears to be ongoing. Number 13. Stephen J. Russell. Using over a dozen aliases, American con artist Stephen J. Russell famously posed as a business tycoon, FBI agent, law student, and more while carrying out his deceptive schemes. He's even better known for escaping prison repeatedly without resorting to a single act of violence. While serving time in Texas for insurance fraud in 1992, Russell impersonated a guard and simply walked out of the facility. During his time on the run, he fell in love with a man named Philip Morris. The couple embezzled $800,000 together before Russell was caught and sent back to prison to finish out his original sentence. He also faced additional charges stemming from the embezzlement scheme. While awaiting trial with bond set at $950,000, Russell called the court clerk pretending to be the judge and got his bail reduced to a more affordable $45,000. He bonded out and fled to Florida, but was captured just a week after his escape and sentenced to 45 years for the embezzlement case. Determined to be with Morris, Russell dyed a prison uniform green using marker ink and walked out of the maximum security facility while posing as a doctor. He reunited with his lover in Biloxi, Mississippi, but was soon captured again. After having another 45 years tacked onto his sentence, Russell purposely lost a massive amount of weight and forged his medical records to reflect an AIDS diagnosis. In March of 1998, he was relocated to a hospice facility and once again slipped out of sight. Russell sent a forged death certificate to the authorities, who suspected that the document was fake and launched yet another manhunt for him. He unwisely returned to Florida and was soon captured. The court ultimately sentenced him to 144 years in prison, including 99 years for his escapes, making Russell the first person in U.S. history to receive a life sentence for escaping prison. His escapes were almost entirely driven by his relentless quest to be with Morris, serving as the inspiration for the 2009 film I Love You, Philip Morris. To ensure that history wouldn't continue to repeat itself, he served his time in a solitary confinement building where he spent 23 hours a day in a 6-by-9-foot cell. After spending decades in isolation, Russell was granted parole in 2023, with a projected release date in June of 2024. Number 12. Vincenz Vuctilaș. 2 days after bailing out of jail on pending larceny charges in May of 2013, 18-year-old jewelry thief Vincenz Voiceover received a visit from NYPD investigators at his Manhattan apartment. They wanted to question the young man for several other thefts that he was suspected in, but Voiceover had other plans. While being escorted down the stairway of his building with his hands cuffed behind his back, he shoved one of the officers and ran, losing his shoes along the way. Voiceover fled into the subway system and was seen walking along the tracks, prompting the authorities to shut down 4 separate transit lines. Some strap hangers were stranded in mid-tunnel trains for hours until a rescue train came to retrieve them. 5 hours after making a run for it, Voiceover was captured as he exited a subway station just 10 blocks from where he had escaped. He had managed to slip his cuffed hands to the front of his body, but it ultimately did little to help him evade capture. Voiceover was paroled in 2017 after serving part of a 3.5-year prison sentence for burglary, assault, and escape. Number 11. Ronald Kahihikolo. 44-year-old Ronald Patrick Keahanoi Kahihikolo was wanted for attempted murder on Hawaii's Big Island in March of 2023, when police received a tip that he was in the company of 2 individuals who were in possession of stolen vehicles. By then, the manhunt for Kahihikolo was in its 5th day after he shot a woman in the face during a domestic dispute. Officers attempted to pull over the suspected stolen vehicles, but only one of the drivers complied. The other vehicle, driven by Kahihikolo, sped off and was found abandoned on the Hamakoa district 2 hours later. Assuming the wanted fugitive had continued his escape on foot, law enforcement continued with a ground and air search while stopping and searching vehicles. With help from police canines, they tracked Kahihikolo to a remote farm where he was apprehended the following morning. In early 2024, Kahihikolo pleaded no contest to attempted assault and a gun charge. He was sentenced to 20 years in prison. Number 10. Terry Clark Hughes Jr. While attempting to serve multiple arrest warrants at the Charlotte, North Carolina home of 39-year-old Terry Clark Hughes Jr. in April of 2024, a multi-agency fugitive task force was met by immediate gunfire coming from the second story of the home. They returned fire and a lengthy standoff ensued. 4 of the 8 officers who were shot during the exchange of gunfire died from their injuries, including a deputy U.S. Marshal, 2 state officers, and an officer with the Charlotte Mecklenburg Police Department. Hughes eventually tried leaving his house and was shot by one of the task force members, bringing the standoff to a disturbing and tragic end for everyone involved. Just months earlier, Hughes had led police on a high-speed chase during an attempted traffic stop in Lincoln County. He had a lengthy criminal history dating back to 2010, which included at least 2 previous high-speed chases in 2021 and 2012. His prior convictions included speeding to elude, breaking and entering, and possessing a gun as a convicted felon. Hughes also had a chronic habit of failing to appear in court. He was wanted on multiple outstanding charges at the time of the deadly shootout, including drug possession, gun possession, and fleeing and eluding. Local Fraternal Order of Police President Daniel Redford had nothing to say about the slain fugitive in a public statement other than he deserved everything he got. Number 9. Brett Waller. When the police attempted to serve an arrest warrant at his lovely Kentucky home one evening in March of 2023, 59-year-old Brett Waller made a run for it. He jumped into the frigid Tug River and vanished from sight about 300 feet downstream, leaving law enforcement with the difficult task of finding him in the dark. Waller was located using a drone and rescued from the water in a severely weakened state. Rescuer Corey Markham later told the Martin County Tug Valley Mountain Citizen that another 2 minutes in the river may have meant the difference between life and death for Waller, who had spent an hour in 40-degree water. He was treated for hypothermia symptoms and booked into custody for the arrest warrant. This wasn't the first time Waller had tried swimming his way to freedom during a police chase. 5 months earlier, in October of 2023, he ran from the same residence and swam to the West Virginia shoreline, successfully evading his pursuers. Authorities caught up with him a few months later on outstanding charges of violating a protective order and evading police. just weeks before he was rescued from the river. The current status of his case is unclear. Number 8. Timothy Edison. Timothy Edison of Louisville, Kentucky, was wanted for multiple violent felonies when he led law enforcement on a high-speed chase during an attempted traffic stop, crashing his SUV into several police cars along the way. He drove to some nearby boat docks where pursuing officers thought they had him cornered with nowhere to go. But the police realized they were wrong as Edison exited his vehicle and jumped into the Ohio River. Edison swam toward Indiana, but his escape attempt was foiled when he encountered waiting officers along the shore. He turned around and tried to swim back to Kentucky, but was chased by a police boat and plucked from the water. In addition to the charges he was already facing, which include strangulation, wanton endangerment, unlawful imprisonment, assault, and violating a protective order, Edison was expected to face additional counts stemming from his attempt to elude law enforcement. The current status of his case is unclear. Number 7. Tony Sazdanowski. While performing a welfare check in the Sydney suburb Brighton-Les Sands in April of 2019, police encountered 48-year-old Tony Sazdanowski, who has an extensive history of violence and was on parole at the time. He was in a clearly agitated state to begin with, and his behavior escalated as he charged at a 22-year-old female officer and tackled her to the ground. The attack continued even after other officers tased and pepper sprayed Sazdanowski, who was finally subdued after being tased the second time. By the time the police got him under control, the officer's face and head were covered in bleeding scratches and bite marks. In addition to any emotional trauma she suffered, she was required to undergo an infectious disease test and had to wait 6 months to receive the results. Sazdanowski also attacked a male sergeant at the scene and was charged with 2 counts of assaulting an officer and 1 count resisting an officer. He argued in court that the case should be dismissed due to his ailing mental health, but the judge ordered him to a psychiatric hospital for treatment. The case was ongoing as of 2020, but the outcome is unclear. Number 6. Eric Edson. 52-year-old Eric Edson was wanted for at least a dozen crimes in Vermont when he went on a week-long crime spree in late August of 2023. In his efforts to evade capture, he used cars, bicycles, boats, paddleboards, a dump truck, a tractor, and other modes of transportation to outrun pursuing officers. Edson's flight from justice began when police responded to a call about a man who was passed out in the driver's seat of a stolen vehicle. He woke up when the cops arrived and put the pedal to the metal, injuring 2 responding officers as he fled the scene. Later that evening, Edson was spotted by law enforcement and ran. He stole a bicycle, then a sailboat, which he ran aground on Lake Champlain. Early the next morning, he showed up at an outdoor goods store drenched from head to toe and paid for some items with $500 in soaking wet cash. The fleeing fugitive managed to stay 1 step ahead of the police over the following several days, owing to his creative means of escape. More than a week into the manhunt, authorities received a tip that Edson had been seen kayaking 21 miles or 33 kilometers outside Burlington on the Lamoille River. When he realized the police were on his trail, he paddled to shore, fled on foot, jumped back into the water, and tried to swim away from pursuing officers. But the state troopers soon closed in on Edson, making escape impossible. At the time of his arrest, Edson was on probation and had recently served prison time for stealing a trailer and leading police on a high-speed chase. He faces both state and federal charges in connection to his more recent crimes. Edson initially pleaded not guilty in both cases, but has agreed to plead guilty to the federal charges and is facing a sentence of up to 20 years. His state case is ongoing. Number 5. Richard Lee McNair. While stationed as a sergeant at the Minot Air Force in North Dakota in the late 1980s, Richard Lee McNair decided to moonlight as a burglar. During a botched robbery in 1987, he opened fire on 2 men who caught him stealing from a grain elevator, killing one and injuring the other. McNair was arrested for the crime several months later in February of 1988. While sitting in an interrogation room, he pulled a tube of chapstick from his pocket and used it to lubricate his handcuffs. He managed to slip free from his restraints and took off running, but was captured after a brief foot chase. McNair was sentenced to 2 life terms plus 30 years for murder, attempted murder, and burglary. In 1992, he and 2 other inmates escaped from a North Dakota state prison through a ventilation duct. He changed his appearance and remained on the run for 10 months, traveling throughout the US in stolen cars. Following his capture, McNair was transferred to a federal prison in Louisiana, where he worked repairing torn mail bags. In April 2006, he hid inside a purpose-built escape pod that was concealed beneath a pile of mail bags slated for shipment out of the facility. The pallet was taken to a nearby warehouse off prison property, where McNair cut himself free and went on the run. A short while later, a police officer who was aware of the escape spotted McNair jogging in the area and stopped to speak with him. McNair convinced the officer that he was an ordinary citizen out for their daily jog and managed to avoid an arrest despite piquing the cops' suspicions. He remained at large for a year and a half before he was caught driving a stolen truck in New Brunswick, Canada in 2007. Following his recapture, he was transferred to the infamous ADX Florence prison in Colorado, which is known for being the most secure penitentiary in the United States. Now 65 years old, he's currently serving his time at a maximum security prison in Kentucky.
Trevor, is he? You live around here, buddy?
No.
Where you live at?
Down the road by Pineville.
Pineville?
Uh-huh.
Okay. Do you have any form of identification on you?
No, man.
What's your name?
Robert Jones.
Robert Jones?
Uh-huh. Why, I'm not supposed to be on the tracks?
No, that's not the problem right now. What's your address?
I don't have an address. I'm at the hotel. We're working on houses and stuff like that, the roofing.
Roofing?
Yep.
Okay.
For my brother.
All right. What is, we got an escapee.
Oh, shit. Where from?
Prison.
There's a prison here?
Yeah.
Man, it's hot.
Hey, this is Carl. The subject wear glasses? Nothing about glasses. Can you find out? I'm out with a white male on the tracks at Gilly Williams.
You can call my little brother.
Where about? Take your glove off. Any tattoos or anything? Look it over. No, I'm just. No, he's clean.
Oh, I know something. Jesus. I'm 50 years old.
How old is your guy? You're how old?
50. I was born in 56.
He was born in 56. 58. Any kind of details you can give me, huh? What color you got?
Green, well, kind of a turquoise blue.
Turquoise blue?
Yeah.
You want to give me some more?
Call my little brother, man.
Do I? No, it's not. Yeah. Yeah. No, it's short hair. My guy's got skin cut hair. He's got a beard, well, a goatee like. How old is that picture? Yeah, I know. I got the same thing, and you can't see shit on it. What kind of scar? Okay. All right. Let me just verify. He says his brother's staying at the motel. Let me verify that, and if so, I'll just cut him loose. All right. Thanks.
I guarantee I'm not.
You know the bad thing about it?
What's that?
You're matching up to him.
Come on. Well, that sucks, doesn't it?
Yeah. Where are you staying at?
That Titusville or Titus Inn? Titus Inn? Little old.
Where's that at?
I don't even know the address. We just got into town about a week ago, and he dropped me off to jog. I always jog about 12 miles a day.
Where'd he drop you off at?
Up there on that road by, there's some construction going on up there, some houses. And he dropped me off, and he'll be back at the hotel in about probably 10 minutes, 15 minutes.
Who y'all work for?
It's his,
I know. What's the name of the company?
Phil's Roofing.
Okay.
Phil's Roofing.
Did you go through a briar patch or something?
Well, yeah, roofing. I always roof in shorts and cut my scratching up on, the roofing.
That's
stuff.
why your knees are all cut up?
Yeah.
Or y'all got pads?
Huh?
Y'all wear pads?
Hell no, too hot. They the pads rub your back of your legs and stuff.
Where are you from?
Huh? We're originally Dallas, Texas.
I mean, that's where y'all
that's
stay
where we're out of.
Out of Dallas, Texas?
Yes,
What's your name again?
Jimmy Jones.
Put yourself in my position.
Well, yeah, but I'm not.
I know. I'm not throwing you against some.
Prison escapee?
Hey, you wouldn't believe what them guys do.
Okay.
I mean, they got years and years to think about how they're gonna do it. Now, when I crossed the tracks down there, I saw you running. I said, "Well, how lucky can I be?"
No. I'm not no prison escapee.
How far you got to jog to?
Pineville. Hopefully, he's on these tracks. I'll jog.
You gonna hit?
Huh?
Oh, you don't know where you're at?
Yeah, I'm at Ball.
No, I'm talking about you don't know where you're at as far as how far away you are from Pineville.
Well, I would say it's 8 miles.
I'm trying to think where you're gonna hit out at.
Well,
Procter
this goes
& Gamble.
right through Pineville, right?
Right, you're gonna be right there at Procter & Gamble.
Walmart and all that stuff.
That's
Yeah.
where you.
So,
Where's y'all's motel at?
okay, let me think now, because like I say, Phil always drives. Okay, Walmart's right there. Go right at Walmart, and there's a road. Is it 165?
Right.
165 that goes south, and we're about 3 blocks.
Code 4.
Little old tiny hotel. I mean, it's clean, but it's family owned.
Little old tiny hotel.
Yeah, like a motel deal. You park up there, and there's we got a camper, and we were trying to get into the camper place, but we didn't get into the camper place yet. There's a camper place between, I think, Pineville, and what's the next town?
Alexandria?
No, Alexandria's the other way.
We got Ball, Pineville, Tioga.
I think that's Tioga. There's a little, you drive down the road down, and there's a place for campers and stuff. And that's where we usually stay, but we couldn't get in there. I promise you, I'm not no damn prison escapee.
You'd have done run by now. You know that yourself. You'd have done run by now.
No. Well, if you can't verify me, I'll be at the...
Did you see anybody or anything?
There's some kids up there playing.
That's all you saw?
Yeah, the kids. Was that you that blew your siren? There's a siren, and then some kids were screaming, some little kids playing on the tracks. And the guy
probably told them to get off of them.
Oh, did you?
Well...
Can I jog on them? Because this is the only
I don't care, personally.
This is the only way I know how to get back.
Don't get run over by a train.
There isn't any. That's why I picked this.
I'm sure you can hear him way in advance.
Yeah, but that's why these are rusted, right?
What, a train?
They go down this road?
Oh, yeah.
Oh, shit. See, I saw it rusted, and I thought, hell, I can jog on this.
Oh, yeah.
Oh, okay.
Oh, yeah, they'll come. Not as much as our other track. Other track about every hour.
Thank you, sir. I'm sorry to have to hold you up, but...
Hey, no, I'm just doing my job, man.
I know you are.
But, Yeah, just be careful. You'll probably get stopped again. Okay. Don't be alarmed by it. Borderline. Yeah.
Okay, and you'll be on till this shift.
I'll be on until we find this on gun.
Well, my dad's an auxiliary detective.
Where at?
In Dallas.
Oh, okay.
The posse is what they call it.
Yeah.
He's 70 years old and he's been doing it since '63.
Still enjoys it.
Man.
Yeah.
But if somebody else stops me, I just have them call.
I mean, they're gonna go through the same spiel and everything with
they
you.
Can call you.
But yeah, I mean, don't be alarmed by it. Don't be upset about it. You know, they'll just stop you for a minute, check you out and everything. But if you do jog again in the future, carry some ID with you.
See, I'm sorry. When I was in the military, we never carried our ID on base and stuff. So.
On base is different.
Yeah, I know.
You know, they assure you if you can cross on, you got something.
Yeah.
But out here, you're in civilian life, you know.
Were you in the military?
No, I wasn't.
I'm retired Army.
But yeah, in the future, if you're gonna jog again, that way, I mean, if you get run over by a train, I know who you are. I don't have to start second guessing who he is, you know.
Can you write down your phone number, your cell phone number, so I can have whoever call you?
Just call. You got a cell phone with you?
No, hell no. I don't even have a cell phone or anything.
Just call 911 is all you got to do, and they'll get a hold of us.
All right.
That's our quick line there.
You have a good day now.
Be careful, buddy.
Thank you.
All right.
Number 4. Maria del Carmen Rendon. In October of 2021, police officers in Wake Forest, North Carolina, responded to a call about a strangulation between 2 teenagers inside a moving vehicle. They pulled over the driver, 35-year-old Maria del Carmen Rendon, and attempted to speak with a male suspect, who was accused of assaulting a young female passenger. Rendon fled the scene in her vehicle with the teens in her vehicle, nearly striking an officer as she sped off. She was pulled over again but refused an officer's orders to exit the car. When Rendon asked why she was being detained, the officer once again ordered her to step out of the car and threatened to smash her window and pull her out of the vehicle if she refused to follow his commands. He then told Rendon that she had 5 seconds to decide whether she was going to comply and began counting down from 5. Instead of cooperating, Rendon told the officer that he needed to slow down before he ended up facing a lawsuit. He responded by smashing her window with his baton and pulling her out of the car. Rendon was charged with resist, delay, and obstruct, contributing to the delinquency of a minor, driving with a revoked license, and careless and reckless driving. Footage of the arrest went viral, prompting angry demands for an explanation for the officer's seemingly aggressive behavior, but the police department stood behind the officer, who remained on active duty. Number 3. Dusty Mobley. In a police chase that could be described as bizarre even under Florida standards, 40-year-old Dusty Mobley fled from Okaloosa County deputies on a lawnmower when they tried arresting him on an outstanding warrant in July of 2022, just months earlier. Police had spotted Mobley on an expensive stolen boat along the Yellow River. He fled into a swamp and managed to evade capture. Mobley was still wanted in connection with the stolen boat when he made a run for it on his lawnmower. During his second attempt at fleeing, deputies caught up with him and subdued him using a stun gun. In early 2024, Mobley was convicted of a slew of offenses dating as far back as 2020, including 3 counts of being a felon in possession of a gun, grand theft, 2 counts of grand theft, and 1 count each of criminal mischief, property damage, fleeing and eluding, failure to appear in court, and possessing a concealed handcuff key. He's serving a 3-year sentence and is scheduled to be paroled in July of 2025. Today's topic was requested by Nicolette Geiger 3678 and Obi2 3935. If you have any other topics you'd like to learn about, subscribe and let us know in the comments section below. Number 2. Brian Gray. On a Saturday evening in November of 2021, deputies in Lee County, Florida, attempted to pull over a stolen van. The driver, 34-year-old Brian Gray, stepped on the gas and fled, leading law enforcement on a high-speed chase. As he approached the Edison Bridge in Fort Myers, he lost control of the van and crashed into a retaining barrier. Desperate to avoid capture, Gray exited the vehicle and stumbled over to the bridge's railing while a helicopter filmed from above. He spent a moment pondering his next move before jumping into the Caloosahatchee River as a police cruiser pulled up to the crash site. The Fort Myers Police Department deployed a boat to the scene and the fleeing suspect was pulled from the water. Gray received treatment for his injuries and was booked on charges of fleeing police and grand theft. He's currently serving a 5-year probation sentence for the crimes, along with several other charges, including burglary and drug-related offenses. Number 1. Ralph Bucky Phillips. After spending most of his adult life in and out of prison, career thief Ralph Bucky Phillips failed to check in with his parole officer in 2005 following his recent release on his latest burglary conviction. He was sentenced to 90 days at the Erie County Correctional Facility in Alden, New York, just 4 days shy of his scheduled release in April 2006. Phillips cut through the roof of the jail's kitchen with a can opener and escaped. During the massive manhunt that ensued, he became notorious for his ability to elude law enforcement. In addition to being a skilled survivalist, it's believed that Phillips received help from friends, former girlfriends, and relatives, enabling him to stay on the run longer than he probably would have otherwise. When more than 40 firearms were stolen from a gun store in an area where Phillips was thought to possibly be hiding out, law enforcement offered a $425,000 reward for information leading to his capture, but the manhunt dragged on despite the lucrative bounty. In June of 2006, 2 months after Bucky's escape, State Trooper Sean Brown spotted him in a stolen Ford Mustang outside the town of Elmira and pulled him over. Phillips shot at Brown and sped off, causing serious injuries. The hunt for the elusive fugitive continued for several more months and spanned multiple counties as police tried to catch up with his trail of break-ins and reported sightings. During that time, Phillips landed on the FBI's 10 most wanted fugitives list and earned the rare distinction of becoming one of the only fugitives to simultaneously make the U.S. Marshal Service's top 15 list. In August of 2006, police nearly caught up with Phillips in Niagara County. They were just minutes behind the wanted fugitive, who once again managed to elude law enforcement by disappearing into a nearby forest. 11 days later, an officer spotted Phillips on a motorcycle with fake tags and followed him into the parking lot of an apartment complex where he arrested a group of people who were suspected of harboring the fugitive. In the meantime, Phillips slipped out of sight. Nearly 2 weeks after that, troopers Donald Baker Jr. and Joseph Longobardo staked out the home of a relative of Phillips in the town of Pomfret. Out of nowhere, someone opened fire on the troopers, killing Longobardo and seriously injuring Baker. Phillips was finally captured in western Pennsylvania in September of 2006 after 5 months on the run. After all the violence that occurred throughout the manhunt, police took him into custody without a single shot being fired after spotting him from a distance. As they closed in on Phillips, he realized he wasn't going to get away this time and surrendered peacefully. Later that year, Phillips pleaded guilty as hell to aggravated and 2 counts of attempted aggravated murder. He was sentenced to life without parole. Thanks for watching. Would you rather spend 2 years in prison or be deported from the country you're currently residing in while never being allowed to come back? Let us know in the comment section below.